Dashboard Pro or newbie, it can take a bit to build out a dashboard, especially when you're fine-tuning all the little details to make a good finished product. But we tend to stick with how we learn things until we stumble across something different that's new, novel, or just better. And that's what this video is. A compilation of tips and tricks that I've stumbled upon in my years of working in Tableau. So we're looking at the Tableau Superstore created dashboard just for simplicity here, but everything here still applies in the real world. So I want a new worksheet. I'm gonna use a keyboard shortcut for that. And now I have a blank worksheet. I'm so used to clicking and dragging, so go back to basics here and just double click and Tableau will try to make decisions for you. Sometimes I get that they're not always all that great, but if you're looking at a blank page, it can be a great way just to kind of get the creative juices flowing by seeing exactly what you don't want. So I've thrown up segment, I can throw in cells, and now we got a basic thing that we could turn into essentially what they use in an overview at the top. The other thing that I feel like I don't use enough is hierarchies. For like in this situation in Superstore, they've got a location with country, the region, state, city, zip code. And so if somebody wants to zoom in on anything, they can. And so now we're looking at the city view so that those hierarchies feed into each other. You only create one view and now it's flexible enough to whatever your user needs to use it for. So let's just duplicate this as a crosstab because I want the state as a user. They can simply click on this and now they've got the level of information that they want. They can keep only, and so it just allows you to do that. If you're not sure how to use it, it's not super complicated. We're going to remove this hierarchy so that we can go through this together, but you'll see that they're kind of separated. They've already labeled these as geographic so that Tableau knows how to use them, especially if you're pulling out a map. All you have to do though is click on an element and then drag them to each other. So where's that postal code? We'll start with that. Postal to city. And now it's asking us to create it. So we're going to call it location. And then we'll add in the other elements. Region, where's state, state, and there was a country region. And so now we're back in business where we have a hierarchy built so that we can have that level of navigation. Let's add in some sort of a date. I want to know sales by quarter. Just throwing something random out there. I can double click. It's going to give me year. I want quarter. So I can just pull year out and now I end up with the quarter 1, 2, 3, 4. But that took a few steps. So let's take this back from scratch, and instead of left clicking to, physically drag this up to the column shelf, right click and drag. And now we have the option to choose whatever date information that we want right out the gate without having the multiple clicks. So just double click on quarter and now I've got the same results, fewer clicks. I don't know how I didn't know this over the years. Another option is just to type directly in the shelf that you want a dimension or measure to be in. This comes in handy, especially if you've got a really long list of dimensions and measures to like sort through. And yes, you can use the search filter to kind of narrow that down, or we can just start typing into the bar. So I know I want a quarter and it's kind of populating for me, and say order date, tab, close that parentheses, and now we've got it pretty quickly too. So there's almost always more than one way to get something done when you're working in Tableau. Formatting is huge because I can spend so much time nitpicking all the things for a finished product before I even get going. There have been instances where I'm even dictated by department or the company as to what type of fonts I can use inside of a dashboard or any kind of reporting. Format. You can change the workbook theme, but workbook itself is where you can get specific. So if you wanted something different, you could totally do that. Something a little wild here that's hard to look at, but you can change, and that's kind of the point. And so that anything that you do inside of the entire workbook is now going to have the fonts and the sizes that you're changing up here. We have worksheets at 9, tooltips at 10, so how we hover. All of those things are covered and changeable here. So when you make the change, even if you've been working in this thing for weeks and you go back and you change the whole workbook, it's changed throughout to help save you some time. So we'll just leave it in this font just for a little bit of fun. And so that should save you some time for formatting when you do need to make changes, especially as you're reaching that finished product stage. This definitely isn't my favorite font, I will say that. I don't see myself using quarter in real life, so let's go to year. And let me show you another formatting trick that's kind of interesting. I'm gonna get rid of year. So now we're just looking at cells by segment. We'll just go show me, use a bar real quick. Okay, cool. Now let's say I have somebody requesting something I would never do, but we want some crazy colors in here. So we're gonna throw on this random pink. And then we're gonna change up this format because it just doesn't go with this pink and being crazy enough here. How about some Rage Italic? Anything Rage sound good to you? And so yeah, like, well, I would never use this. If there is a case where you do need to make something very different for whatever reason, you've got your format set to however it was requested of you. Put it on the inside because that's what I'm feeling today. And here we are. So we have a format. Okay, so I did the request wrong. I was supposed to use product name, not segment. So I put in product name and now all my formatting is gone. Granted, I don't love this report anyway, but like, we need to preserve our formatting. So another option is to go back to where you're writing inside of the shelf and say product name. But notice we have product over here, which is a hierarchy. You can't type in the hierarchy, but you can type in the item here and hit the tab. We've now preserved the formatting, which is definitely the point. And let's say we do want to grab that hierarchy though, the trick to that would be when you're overwriting and still preserving that format would be to grab that top level inside of that hierarchy. So in this case with product, we have category is next. So we're gonna start typing a category, hit tab, hit enter, and now we've preserved it. And now users of the report will be able to go through that hierarchy. Now notice though, interesting choice in font over on the left, it does not carry through. So you would literally need to make the change if you were to put it in a hierarchy at this stage, but it will preserve it, you know, as you use it. Remember whenever I dragged up order date into the shelf and I was able to immediately go to quarter using that drop field box? This helps so much, especially with large data sets. So I can't emphasize it enough. While these steps are like really quick, either like when we're working with this very curated data set through Tableau, that is not the case in the real world. And you could have to wait for each of those clicks to do the next step. And so it's annoying. In this case, I've got category and subcategory. And then when I now have this, I really just want to count. So I could get that count by using the right arrow, drop down, and then go to measure and then count distinct. And now I've got it. That's annoying. Let me put it on label. And now I've got my count. Or we can do that thing where we right click on product name, drag it onto the text, and then now we're given that same drop field box with count distinct, double click, and now we have it. So it's just one less click having to go from drag it up there, wait for it to load, use the down arrow to get to the measure county. Now it needs to be put onto the text mark area so that it's not that awkward looking graph in this situation, or right click, drag, get the drop field, move it. It's only got to go one time where there's a delay versus 2 or 3 times. An old way I used to deal with filters is let's drag something onto filters. I really just want to see all of them. So all, okay, and now we're in business and now somebody can't see it, which of course we'd add it to the dashboard anyway. But let's say show filter, and here we are. So it's a few clicks, it's not a big deal, but let's undo that though. And then let's say, instead of going through all those steps, you can right click on the thing that you want to filter. So in this case, it's region, and to say show filter, and immediately it's put on, all of them are selected, and we're ready to roll. So it's one step instead of a couple. Again, not a huge deal, but just little nuances that really save you time as you're building out a lot of pages to fill out a good reporting package. And by having the show card, that's the thing that kind of tells Tableau that whenever you pull a worksheet into a dashboard, that you want that filter to go along with it for a selection choice for users. And another thing that changes based on report and all of it, but it's still super helpful, make sure that whenever you're using your filters, you apply it to all the worksheets that might need it. So in this case, maybe I want region to go across the whole data source, that if somebody decided that they want to pick a specific region, all the reports are then filtered to, central if that's what's chosen, instead of making a user go back and reselect every time. So one choice and it goes through the whole dashboard. Or not, right? So sometimes that there is a need for both, and just being aware and revisiting it before you actually go to publish can be super helpful. I love to use copy format and the paintbrush, the formatting tools, whatever, in the Microsoft products. And I wanted to do the same in Tableau, but for some reason, because it's not on my toolbar necessarily, I forget that it exists. Like I've got centered headers here, things like that. Even though this looks very different, notice that they're not centered in the same way. way, like the headers aren't centered. Let's pretend I have customers that would realize that there is some inconsistency there. All you have to do is go to the sheet, right click, copy formatting, and then go to the worksheet that you want to paste the formatting to, and then right click and paste formatting. So there's some subtle differences here. They're not huge, but now we've got centered headers and other like visual elements like that. It's not perfect whenever I do this copy and paste formatting, but sometimes it'll steer you in the right track so that you're not making the same changes across a bunch of sheets as you make these tiny nuanced changes inside of your workbook. Since you're into building dashboards faster, you're definitely going to want to check out this shortcuts in Tableau too.